Hi, it's me again, Ari. So in today's video, we're gonna take a small table that I found on the side of the road made of particle board, and we're gonna turn it into stone. Well, it's not real stone, but it looks like real stone. And it's a really cool method, and it's really easy. So if you have a small table at home that you're thinking about throwing out, maybe it's not in good condition, you can possibly make this yourself. So if you're interested, keep on watching. Oh, and by the way, you see these lamps next to me? I DIY'd those too. I learned how to make them through MaCenna. She's another DIY YouTuber here on YouTube, and I love her. Check her out. So hang in there and keep on watching. So I found this table on the side of the road again, and I saw potential in it. It has particle board, it's raw, so I have to cover it. I decided to use the spackle, which I've used in previous videos, and it's a spackle that turns from pink to white once it's dry. And I have this tongue depressor thingamabogger and this spatula that's very crusty. I'm using a pair of gloves, and I'm basically just applying it in big blobs and then smoothing it out, spreading more outward as I go. I noticed that with this spatula thingamabobber, it's easier to get an even finish when you angle it upward as opposed to keeping it more parallel with the table. As I'm going along, I'm learning, and it starts to feel like I'm icing a cake, so I enjoyed it. It takes a little while, but it was kind of therapeutic. And so as I'm coming outward to the edges, all its curves and all its edges, I'm using my glove because it's just easier for me. And I'm sealing it up until about 1/2 inch past the curve of this table round. And after it's done drying, I sand it down with 240 grit, and I have my vacuum nearby because it's really cold out, and unfortunately I have to do this in my apartment. I sanded out the sharper peaks, but I noticed that this texture looked really cool. It kind of reminded me of an English muffin, to be honest with you. After sanding, I filled in some of the smaller spots. After that's done drying, I found this paint that I actually got in Seattle. We went to a Habitat for Humanity store, and it wasn't labeled, unfortunately. So I bought it, and it ended up being perfect for this because once I added some baking soda, the finish looked like stone. And it's this beautiful bluish gray color. It's just perfect for this project. I love the color once it was dried, so I added another layer, and I'm using dabbing motions. As you can see here, it's helping to create that stone-like texture. And after the first layer and every other layer, I use the furniture flipping teacher's method of putting saran wrap around my brush to help it from drying in between all of those layers. And I'm dabbing it more and more, and that texture is just coming through. Looks so much better than the brush strokes that I initially was going for. And after that second coat, I applied actually 2 layers of this polyurethane using the same brush. And this is a matte finish. So because I'm trying to be resourceful, I'm using a Starbucks cup and I'm dabbing that on as well. To add even more texture and possibly some specks of color, I'm putting this cracked black pepper, but now that I have tried it, I wouldn't recommend this type of black pepper. I would actually recommend the square kind of tin McCormick style pepper. Anything that's a lot more finer because it was just way too rigid and sharp, and the pieces were large and it just wasn't working out. After that, I needed to take the legs apart, and these were really stuck onto these screws and these pieces underneath the tabletop. So once I yanked those out, I needed to sand them really well because it looks like the previous owner had used some red paint and some wood glue, and it was in bad shape. I used an 80 grit sandpaper for the more rough parts, and then some 240 grit sandpaper on the rest of them. They were very easy to sand. The wood was nice and soft, it was buttery, and I love the color of it. So I stuck with the color of this natural wood. I just needed to seal it. I eventually go right back in with that polyurethane, and I applied 2 coats of this polyurethane using a smaller brush, and just nice even strokes. Even though it's clear, you don't see it, but the finish came out so lovely. Oh my gosh, I'm obsessed with this table. The stone-like tabletop paired with the raw wood brings out natural elements of the earth. It's simple yet sleek and perfect for a small plant or a DIY candle, much like this one that I made myself. And it's also good for a catch-all tray, maybe in an entryway or even beside a small love seat in your living room. I hope you love this table. I am absolutely obsessed with it, and I hope you try it. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.